Chapter 1. In my previous life. On the day of the college entrance exam, I was late because I helped an elderly man who had fallen by the roadside, causing me to miss the exam. Who would have thought that the old man was the richest person in the province? To repay me for saving his life, he recognized me as his goddaughter and made me one of his heirs. I leaped from an ordinary life to become the daughter of a wealthy tycoon. Meanwhile, my sister chose not to help the elderly man, although she was on time for the exam. Her poor state of mind caused her to fail and end up working in a factory. Her jealousy of me turned into madness, and on the day I inherited billions, she pushed me off a tall building, killing me. When I opened my eyes again, I saw my sister running towards the fallen old man, and I knew my sister had also been reborn. But she doesn't know that while saving the old man is easy, becoming his goddaughter and getting included in the will is not something anyone can achieve. When I opened my eyes again, I found that time had returned to the day of the college entrance exam. Before I could fully process it, I saw Selena, my sister, rushing towards the fallen elderly man. I strolled over slowly. Selena gave me a smug smile. "Sister, this time the position of the tycoon's daughter is mine." I smiled nonchalantly. "Well, I'm off to the exam now. Don't miss your exam time." Selena froze, clearly not expecting me to not compete with her for it. Not only that, but I even called an ambulance for her before entering the exam room. A confused Selena couldn't quite understand what I was up to. She thought I was provoking her and yelled at me, "Do you really think getting into a good university will matter? Once I inherit the fortune, it'll be more than you'll make in a lifetime." I waved at her without looking back. Good luck with that. In my previous life, I had experienced this exact scene. At that time, I stayed without hesitation to accompany the old man to the hospital, and Selena mocked me, saying, "You're giving up your future for some old man. I don't know if you're kind or just plain stupid." But just like in a TV drama, I ended up saving a billionaire and became his goddaughter, inheriting a fortune. However, being the daughter of a wealthy tycoon wasn't all good. It certainly wasn't as easy as it seemed. Marco, the richest man in the province, had 4 children, each a leader in their field. Having grown up in a privileged environment, they were all skilled in the arts and culture. They were already fighting openly and secretly, coveting Mr. Marco's inheritance. From the moment they laid eyes on me, I became their common enemy. In their eyes, I was just a clueless bumpkin trying to soar and become a phoenix. They made things difficult for me at every opportunity, even plotting to set me up several times. The fact that I survived long enough to inherit the fortune was a miracle in itself. But all Selena saw was my glamorous exterior. In this life, when I saw Selena rush toward Marco, I couldn't help but feel a sense of relief. With a confident stride, I walked into the exam hall, ready to embrace the life I wanted. A week later, Marco came to my house to discuss making Selena his goddaughter with my parents. While Marco chatted with my parents, Selena came over to me. "Sorry, sister, but it looks like it's your turn to work in a factory." I patted her shoulder, sincerely saying, "Take care," and went back to my room. Selena, who had come over eager to show off, stomped her feet in anger at my indifferent attitude. What she didn't realize is that I am different from her. With my grades, getting into one of the top-ranked universities in the country was easy. As long as I worked hard, earning $1 million a year was just a matter of time. I knew very well that Selena, always scheming for shortcuts, would find entering the wealthy family akin to a sheep walking into a tiger's mouth. My dear sister, before you think about inheriting anything, you'd better think about surviving first. Chapter 2. Someone like Marco, a wealthy tycoon, places great emphasis on ceremony, and the matter of making a goddaughter created quite the buzz in the entire city. He prepared an elaborate banquet specifically to announce it to the whole province. He even invited my parents and me to stay at the most luxurious hotel in the province. On the morning of the banquet, Marco sent us high-end custom dresses. I opened the box and laid the dress on the table, deep in thought. In my previous life, Marco had also prepared this very dress when he adopted me as his goddaughter. Since the moment I wore that dress, I had enjoyed great wealth and luxury. But the grievances I suffered were known only to me. But thinking about it now, all the dresses Marco ordered were from the same shop, the same size, The same designer. I bet Selena's dress was just like the one I wore in my previous life. Suddenly, a knock on the door pulled me out of my thoughts. I opened the door to see a man in a suit bowing slightly at the entrance. "Miss, your sister has asked for you." I felt a bit confused but followed him. As soon as I entered her room, I saw Marco sitting on the sofa. I nodded towards him and then walked over to Selena. Selena was sitting in front of the vanity, surrounded by servants fussing over her. Marco had even specially invited a celebrity makeup artist for her. Selena glanced at me, taking out 2 exquisite wooden boxes and placing them before me. "Sister, I want you to help me choose which necklace suits my dress better." I recognized the 2 boxes at a glance. They were crystal necklaces Marco had purchased at an overseas auction for $10 million. In my past life, she had also asked me to choose, but I knew well what this banquet signified. Every powerful family in the province was attending, and Marco's children would be there too. To avoid attracting hatred, I had refused Marco's kindness last time. This time, however, it was clear Selena was showing off. I understood that no matter which one she chose, it would be seen as a threat by Marco's children. In their eyes, it was more like a declaration of taking over. I looked at the necklaces and picked one casually. "With your fair complexion, you'd look good with either." Selena's face lit up with barely concealed joy. "You really know how to pick your battles. It's not too late to please me now." I looked at her reflection in the mirror, wearing the same dress I wore in my past life. Feeling somewhat lost in thought, Selena seemed to sense something too. "Well, what do you think? Doesn't the same dress look more dignified now that it's worn by someone of a higher status?" I lowered my head. "This dress was tailored for you after all." "Of course. It suits your temperament." Though outwardly submissive to her, I couldn't help but feel a bit pleased inside. Instead of saying she stole my identity, it was more accurate to say I let her have it. Now, she still naively believes that her life as a socialite will begin once the banquet ends, but she would never guess that this was just the beginning. And given her vain and arrogant personality, I don't need to do anything, just go along with the flow. Marco truly lived up to being the richest man in the province. When the grand doors of the banquet hall opened, the opulence was overwhelming. The guests were all prominent figures from the province, billionaire businessmen and powerful officials. Even the governor had shown up to extend his congratulations. The banquet began, and the lights dimmed, with the spotlight shining at the entrance. Selena entered, wearing a white gown. People murmured in admiration. "Miss Selena truly looks like she comes from a distinguished family." I silently glanced at Marco's biological children, their gloomy expressions standing out amidst the lively crowd. Their darkened faces suggested they wanted nothing more than to beat Selena up right then and there. Amid the applause, Selena walked onto the stage, and Marco sat smiling on the platform, just as Selena reached for the teacup held by the etiquette lady to offer Marco. Marco's daughter gave a subtle push from behind. Selena stumbled, spilling tea all over herself. Selena, with her arrogance, had long forgotten herself. In front of everyone, she slapped the etiquette lady. "You useless thing. Do you even know how expensive this dress is? It's worth more than your life." In an instant, the entire hall fell silent. This gown that she thought was so precious was nothing but an ordinary dress to everyone present. Marco also looked a bit awkward. He pulled Selena's arm. "Selena, everyone's watching. Mind your manners." In my previous life, I had experienced this exact scenario, but I understood that as a member of a noble family, every action would be scrutinized by others. The key was to be poised and graceful, and above all, kind and generous. If the situation was not handled well and Marco lost face, the following days would naturally be miserable. However, if one seized the opportunity to show a gentle and kind side, it would earn respect from everyone present. At the time, I simply wiped off the tea with a napkin and reassured the etiquette lady. "It's all right. The dress can be cleaned." Afterward, Marco praised me for my composure, but Selena clearly hadn't caused enough trouble yet. She wanted nothing more than to declare to everyone that she was now an untouchable heiress. She shook off Marco's hand and whined loudly, disregarding the occasion. "Dad, this is the first dress you bought for me. I won't let this worthless wench get away with it." Her words completely enraged Marco. Chapter 3. Marco was known for his emphasis on etiquette and discipline. especially with his children. His reputation for compassion towards the less fortunate was also well known. And now, Selena had openly disrespected the etiquette lady and hurled insults at her in front of so many people. Marco glared straight at Selena. "Don't call me Dad. Don't forget. Before you became my goddaughter, you were nothing compared to her." With that, he got up and left the banquet hall. Selena stood frozen, staring at Marco's retreating figure, completely at a loss. She couldn't understand why her doting godfather had suddenly turned against her. I smiled helplessly. It seemed she had already caused trouble for herself so soon. In Marco's position, nothing was more important than reputation. The reason he made her his goddaughter was simply to show everyone that he was a warm and grateful person. Selena still naively believed that she had been chosen because she was charming and precious to Marco. And this was only the beginning. If she was causing such a scene now, there would surely be more suffering ahead for her. Although the adoption ceremony ended on a sour note, it eventually came to a close. Marco, though displeased, out of politeness, still invited my parents and me to stay at his home for a while, saying he wanted to properly show us around. While I understood that Marco's adoption of a goddaughter had drawn a lot of attention, I didn't expect such a small incident to be so eagerly discussed. Within just a few days, the events of the banquet had spread like wildfire, with everyone having something to say. Most of the comments were negative towards Selena. How could someone like her be made Mr. Marco's goddaughter? I really don't know what he was thinking. Mr. Marco must have lost his mind, ruining his reputation at this age for a little girl. Who knows? Maybe this Selena is Marco's illegitimate daughter. Though these were just rumors, public opinion can be terrifying. Marco, who had always been well informed, soon heard about the rumors. When he got the news, he flew into a rage, smashing an antique vase in the living room. Selena stood to the side, too scared to make a sound. From that point on, Marco, already harboring resentment, never showed Selena a kind face again. To prevent Selena from making another public spectacle, Marco arranged endless etiquette lessons for her, from tea ceremonies to table etiquette. Even the posture and manner of walking had to be practiced. Marco warned Selena that she was not allowed to step out of the house until she had learned properly. Selena, who had come here expecting a life of comfort and luxury, found it unbearable. Every day, she either slacked off or cut corners. I remembered that, in my previous life, I had also learned these things, but it was because I wanted to learn. Being naturally curious, I had always envied the children of rich families who could try out all sorts of new things. Since coming to Marco's house, I had actively asked him to enroll me in over a dozen interest classes, filling my schedule completely, but I enjoyed every moment of it. Even though I had been reborn, I hadn't forgotten a single thing I learned in my previous life. Watching Selena make the tea ceremony teacher so angry that he was dizzy, I couldn't help but laugh. Hearing me, Selena snapped at me. "What's so funny? If you're so great, why don't you do it?" I quickly stifled my laughter. But Selena, frustrated and needing someone to take it out on, wouldn't let it go, dragging me to sit at the tea table. I didn't hesitate. "Watch closely. I'll only demonstrate once." I recalled the knowledge I had learned in my previous life, skillfully warming the cups, adding the tea, rinsing it, steeping, pouring, and finally dividing the tea. Selena stared at me, dumbfounded. "You did this on purpose to make me look bad, didn't you?" I smiled calmly. "Weren't you the one who pulled me over to sit down?" An enraged Selena swept all the tea sets off the table, smashing them to pieces. I remained calm, sipping the cup of premium white tea I had just brewed. Chapter 4. Selena probably still didn't realize that what she had shattered was a set of Qing dynasty porcelain from the Qianlong era. Now, Mr. Marco certainly wouldn't let her off easily. I put down the only surviving teacup in my hand. As I stood up, Marco arrived. Having heard the commotion, he looked at the mess on the floor and questioned Selena. "What are you making a fuss about again? I brought you here so as not to create trouble for me." Selena pouted. "It's just a tea set. There are so many at home, and I don't even want to learn about this silly tea ceremony." With that, she sat down on the sofa, fidgeting. It seemed she really thought of herself as some spoiled young lady from a novel now. She believed that a little pouting, a bit of whining, would make Marco pamper her like a princess. But in reality, the wealthier the family, the higher their standards for their children. Marco was incredibly strict with his own daughter, let alone Selena. Marco grabbed her arm and pulled her up from the sofa. Look carefully at what's written under that teacup. Selena nonchalantly picked up the only remaining teacup from the table. The next second, her eyes widened. Qianlong. This tea set an antique? Although Marco's family business was enormous, and a set of teacups didn't mean much to him, to Selena, it was worth more than her life. She hurried to apologize. I'm sorry, Marco. I really didn't know. Marco interrupted her before she could finish. Not knowing means you can just smash things? Who allowed you to act recklessly here? You've only been here a few days, and you already think you're the master of the house? I'm still alive. Keep this up, and you can go back to your own home. Selena was terrified, kneeling before Marco instantly. I know I was wrong. Please don't send me back. I promise it won't happen again. Marco couldn't be bothered with her, instructing the servants to clean up before turning away. This time, Selena should be on her best behavior for a few days. It's easy to go from simple to extravagant, but difficult to go from extravagant back to simple. If she were really sent back to her rural hometown, she wouldn't be able to handle it. After this commotion, I was about to take a book to the back garden for some peace when I looked up and saw young Master Victor standing at the corner. Without thinking much, I smiled and nodded at him before leaving the living room with my book. But as soon as I sat down on the rocking chair in the garden, I saw him follow me. I quickly stood up. Is there something you need, young master? He gestured for me to sit across from him. Don't be nervous. I just want to have a chat. Looking at this familiar yet unfamiliar person, I was at a loss for words for a moment. He was the youngest child in the family, yet also the gentlest. Unlike his other siblings, he wasn't interested in wealth or fame, and he despised deceit and scheming. He was also kind and approachable. In my previous life, if it hadn't been for his help, I probably wouldn't have survived as long as I did. He could sense my unease and started the conversation. Miss, I noticed you were very skilled at making tea just now, and you were remarkably calm. I feel like you carry the air of someone from a wealthy family. I smiled awkwardly. I've just watched some videos on my phone. In my past life, I lived in this household for 8 years, and in order to fit in, I had learned much more than him. So it wasn't surprising that he had this feeling. Victor looked at me with admiration. It seems, then, that you are quite clever, miss. As we chatted, my phone rang, and I suddenly remembered that today was the day for college admission notifications. I nervously answered the call. Hello. A bright voice came from the other end. Hello. Is this Laura? This is Tsinghua University, and we are pleased to inform you that you have been admitted. I froze, looking at Victor in front of me. If I remember correctly, he should be the same age as me, and in my previous life, he also got into Tsinghua University. Chapter 5. Sure enough, the next second, Victor received the same admission notification as me, and, influenced by him in my previous life, I had also developed an interest in psychology. Unsurprisingly, we had applied for the same major. Victor jumped up in excitement, hugging me tightly. Laura, we'll be classmates from now on. I was very aware that, being just a child from the countryside, it was improper for me to embrace someone like Victor, a young master. I quickly pushed him away. Congratulations, young Master Victor. But this scene was caught by Selena, who walked up with her hands on her hips, mocking me in a nasty tone. Oh, I was wondering what you were up to. So, you're busy seducing the young master. Let me warn you, don't get any funny ideas, or you'll have to pay for it. I could tolerate her insulting me, but Victor had been my lifesaver in my past life. Naturally, I didn't want him to suffer because of me. You should worry about yourself. You're already in trouble, my dear sister. At this point, Selena dared not express her anger openly. She knew she had just infuriated Mr. Marco, and if she started yelling at me now, the consequences would be unimaginable. Fortunately, Victor's sister, Monica, came out to intervene. She stepped forward and said, "All right, there's no need for family members to argue. Let's go horseback riding. Big sister will take you." Selina's mood perked up immediately at the mention of horseback riding. She believed that was exactly the kind of activity a rich young lady should do. She eagerly took Monica's arm. "Sister, you're the best. I knew you weren't like what others say." My heart turned cold. Monica was notorious for being ruthless, and she was now the head of the family business. If anyone fought the hardest for inheritance, it was her. In my previous life, Monica had used the guise of inviting me horseback riding to nearly kill me. Luckily, I survived, but I ended up lying in the hospital for 3 full months due to a spinal injury, almost becoming disabled. Upon reaching the stables, Monica enthusiastically took Selina on a tour. She even led a horse over to Selina, claiming it was the best one. This stable belonged to Monica, and horseback riding was her favorite activity. She knew every horse here, their temperament and character, inside out. The horse in front of us was the very one that had thrown me in my previous life. It was also the most temperamental horse in the entire stable. Upon hearing that it was an Tech horse, Selina was eager to get on. Just as she sat down, Monica immediately raised her whip and struck the horse hard on its rear. The fierce horse shot off like lightning. Selina screamed in terror, and Monica, feigning ignorance, turned to me and asked, "Does Selina not know how to ride a horse?" I shrugged. "I'm not sure either." She looked so confident getting on the horse that I assumed she could. Seeing that something was wrong, Victor mounted his horse to give chase. However, the horse he had chosen for me to learn to ride was one of the more docile ones. Even with the whip cracking until it smoked, he couldn't catch up with Selina. By the time we found Selina again, the horse was nowhere to be seen. Not only had she fallen off the galloping horse, but she had also been trampled. Now, she lay motionless on the ground. Other than still breathing, she was practically indistinguishable from a corpse. Monica, pretending to be concerned, quickly called for an ambulance. I could tell that Monica didn't intend to kill Selina outright. She just wanted to give her a lesson for now. Whether Selina lived or died afterward would depend on her own performance. But knowing Selina's character, she probably wouldn't realize it. After the surgery at the hospital, Selina was sent straight to the ICU. She was worse off than I had been in my previous life. Not only was her spine injured, but her neck and internal organs were also hurt to varying degrees. However, she had managed to keep her life. Margot, still angry, only made a token visit after she was transferred to a regular room. Monica, on the other hand, brought a bouquet of flowers and stayed in Selina's room for a while, but it didn't sound like she was there out of concern. Seeing that Selina posed no immediate threat to her while lying in the hospital bed, Monica spoke to her kindly. One should always act within their abilities. Do what matches your own capacity. Selina, not understanding the underlying meaning, smiled naively. "Thank you for your concern, sister. I'll definitely be careful in the future." Monica, who was peeling an apple, smiled helplessly. She put down the fruit knife on the table, stopped talking, and stood up to leave. Chapter 6. Selina's words to Monica were more of a threat than anything else. But at this point, I didn't have the energy to deal with these petty matters because my university term was starting in just a few days. I gathered my things at Marco's house and was ready to return home to pack for school when Victor ran after me, handing me a box, reminding me to open it only after getting in the car. I hesitated, my hands hovering in the air. Victor shoved the box into my arms. "It's nothing valuable. Just take it." Maybe he was afraid I would refuse, because as soon as he said that, he turned and ran off. Mom called out for me to hurry into the car, so I had no choice but to accept his gift. On the way home, I looked at the delicately wrapped box, feeling a mix of excitement and nervousness. I carefully untied the ribbon, and when I opened the box, I saw a beautifully embroidered pouch. My heart skipped a beat as cold sweat formed on my back. This was the same pouch that Victor had given me in my previous life, saying it was for protection. But we had only known each other for a short while in this life. A thought crossed my mind, could he have been reborn too? But my rebirth was due to Selina pushing me off the building, and Selina's rebirth was because I grabbed onto her as I fell. Victor had always kept away from disputes, and it seemed too coincidental for him to have an accident at the same time. I shook my head, trying to dispel the thought. It's just a farewell gift, nothing more. After all, It wasn't unusual for things that happened in the previous life to happen again in this one. A sudden jolt brought me back to reality as the car came to a stop. I looked out the window. I was back in the small town nestled between mountains and rivers. This place that Selena so desperately wanted to escape from was, in contrast, my cherished hometown. Every tree and bush in the courtyard felt so familiar and dear. I wished I could take them all with me. Mom kept reminding me not to leave anything behind. Watching her busy in the kitchen, I hugged her from behind. Mom, I missed you so much. I wasn't as sweet-talking as Selena and had never said anything this affectionate in my previous life. Mom laughed, her smile spreading across her face. What are you talking about? Silly child, haven't we been together every day? What's this? Feeling reluctant to leave now that you're going off to university? I wiped my tears. When I become successful, I'll definitely bring you and Dad to the city to live. Mom smiled. All right. You and Selena are both bringing pride to our family. I sighed. Selena should focus on staying alive first. Returning to my room, I finally slept peacefully, surrounded by the familiar surroundings. A few days later, I arrived at the university with bags and luggage. The moment I got to the gate, I saw Victor walking toward me with a beaming smile. I've been waiting for you for a long time. Let me help you with those. I blinked. Waiting for me? Victor tried to act nonchalant. Of course. Did you look at the gift I gave you? Aren't you going to tell me the truth? I felt a bit guilty. What do you mean? Victor stopped walking. Laura, I know you've also been reborn. I opened my mouth to speak but was interrupted by him. I was reborn too. When I heard about your death in my previous life, I rushed to find you and got into an accident because I was distracted while driving. Actually, in my previous life, I liked you for a long time, but you were my dad's goddaughter, and I couldn't express my feelings. In this life, I don't want to miss my chance again. I stared at him, stunned. How could I not feel the same? Despite being born into a prominent family, he wasn't arrogant like other heirs, but instead was gentle and cultured. Faced with a vast inheritance, he didn't fight for it. He cared only for his inner fulfillment. He had a kindness and resilience that didn't match his status. Yet, faced with his sudden confession, I found myself at a loss for words. Chapter 7. He seemed to realize how abrupt he had been, scratching his head. Sorry. I didn't mean to scare you. You can take your time to think about it. I looked at the school gate in front of me, then at the boy I had secretly liked for so many years. I thought it was time for me to enjoy my life too. I firmly took his hand. I'm willing. Soon after, he eagerly brought me home to share the news with Marco. Originally, I thought Marco wouldn't approve of someone like me, a girl from the countryside, as his daughter-in-law. But to my surprise, he was overjoyed and readily agreed. Selena, who was sitting in her wheelchair, looked so furious that it seemed she might stand up and walk any moment as a miraculous medical recovery. She hurried to speak ill of me in front of Marco. Dad, she's just a country girl. How can she marry into the Gu family as a daughter-in-law? Marco's face darkened instantly. What? Isn't she your sister? If you can call me Dad, why can't she? Marco's words left Selena speechless. With Mr. Marco's support, my relationship with Victor went exceptionally smoothly over the next few years. Right after graduation, we founded the largest psychological counseling center in the country, and even opened a gallery focused on children's mental health. 2 years later, I published my first psychology book. Having established our careers, we settled down in Beijing, held a grand wedding, and started a family, leading a happy life. I also kept my promise, using my savings to buy my parents a big house in Beijing and brought them over. However, Selena's life wasn't so smooth. 3 years after we got married, Marco became critically ill. Seeing that her time to finally share in the inheritance was almost here, Selena's eagerness practically wrote itself all over her face. But just at that moment, Victor's 2 older brothers and sister, who were living abroad, rushed back home. They had already heard about Selena. Now that they saw her in person, they were even more annoyed. However, Mr. Marco's will had been established long ago. Selena was included in it, and no one other than Marco could change it. Though her share wasn't much, it still amounted to over 10 million. Now, Selena was like a starving wolf, itching for Marco to take his last breath at any moment. Monica, however, remained unusually calm, and I knew the reason why. If Victor hadn't saved me in time, I might have already died a tragic death at her hands. This time, unsurprisingly, it was the same trick, but I had no intention of stopping it. I wanted to see those who had harmed me get the punishment they deserved. One by one. Sure enough, it didn't take more than 2 days before I received news of Selena's car accident. It was the same driver, at the same intersection, in my previous life. Seeing that the inheritance was about to fall into the hands of an outsider, Monica, ruthless as she was, found the father of a terminally ill little girl at the hospital. She promised him that as long as he drove and killed me, she would pay for all his daughter's medical expenses and find a suitable kidney donor for her. This time, before the accident, I walked to the door of the little girl's hospital room and witnessed their deal with my own eyes. The little girl's father, dressed in rags, was hiding near the door, eating steamed buns and pickles. When he saw Monica standing in front of him, he immediately tried to get up and leave. I watched as Monica grabbed hold of him. I quietly took out my phone and recorded everything. As soon as Monica finished her offer, driven by his desperate love for his daughter, he agreed without hesitation. In my previous life, upon hearing the news, Victor called me immediately, allowing me to avoid that road and save my life. But this time, Selena wasn't so lucky. Victor, knowing that Selena was the one who had caused my death in the previous life, had long harbored resentment towards her, though his law-abiding nature prevented him from being as ruthless as Monica. However, like me, he had been waiting for this day to come, but I didn't want Selena to die that easily, nor did I want my parents to be too heartbroken. I used all the resources I had accumulated over the years to find the best doctors in the country for Selena's surgery. The operation was successful, and her life was saved, but she would be paralyzed for life. Chapter 8. Except for her mouth, which could still speak, Selena would likely be bedridden for the rest of her life, entirely dependent on even basic needs. Even the face she used to be so proud of was now completely disfigured. After making sure she was settled, I went to the police station and handed over the pre-prepared video to the authorities, also reporting Monica's involvement along with the other 2 siblings. After Monica was imprisoned, I went to see her once. She stared at me through the glass, picked up the phone, and asked, "Why? I haven't treated you poorly all these years." I smiled. "But in the last life, you tried everything you could to harm me." Monica stared at me, confused. She probably would never understand what I meant today, but she didn't need to. A month later, Monica's trial concluded, and she was sentenced to death. The other 2 were only accomplices, but due to the severity of the situation, they were sentenced to life imprisonment with lifelong deprivation of political rights. Finally, I came to Selena's hospital bed. Her long hair had been shaved off, and her face was horribly disfigured from the fire caused by the car accident. The moment she saw me, she began to scream frantically. I knew she didn't want me to see her in such a wretched state, but how could I let her have her way? I slowly sat beside her bed. "Is this the life you wanted?" Selena shouted. "Why? Why did you save me? Wouldn't you be happy if I died?" I looked at her for a while. "It seems that seeing you like this makes me happier than seeing you dead." Her eyes held a look of murderous hatred. "Why? Why did we exchange lives? And yet I still end up like this? Why can you be the rich young lady and I can't?" I frowned slightly. "Who said you couldn't? Aren't you a young lady now?" 2 tears rolled down her cheeks. "We both took the college entrance exam. So why do you make millions a year, while I have to work in a factory? We're both daughters of a rich family. So why can you inherit the fortune while I'm like this, neither human nor ghost?" I smiled knowingly. Perhaps it's because no matter which path I took, it was always due to my own kindness and effort. You, on the other hand, couldn't endure any hardship and only sought shortcuts. Selena burst into tears. "Sister, I know I was wrong. Please, let me die." I quickly refused her. "Oh no, that won't do. If you die this time, there's no coming back." Selena closed her eyes in despair. "In my current state, it would be better if I could just end it all." I gently wiped away her tears. "You're out of danger now, and your vital signs are stable. Letting you die would make me a murderer. Rest assured, sister will make sure you're well taken care of, aiming to let you live a few more years." At that moment, it was unclear if Selena was feeling regret or sorrow, but she was crying uncontrollably. I couldn't be bothered to keep talking to her, so I arranged for someone to take care of her and went home. That evening, while I was enjoying a happy moment with my family, I suddenly received a call from the hospital. After picking up, the doctor informed me that Selena had bitten her tongue to commit suicide. I had expected this outcome long ago. Selena was too proud. How could she be willing to spend the rest of her life like this? After hanging up the phone, Victor gently embraced me from behind. "My father's inheritance now all belongs to me. I wrote a transfer document, and the recipient is you." I turned around and hugged him, quietly sobbing, but it wasn't out of gratitude. If I had to say, it was the thrill of having avenged myself. The joy of this moment. Now, I felt like a phoenix reborn, transforming into a new version of myself under the glow of the setting sun. 3 months later, I came to visit Selena's tombstone. Having let go of hatred, I felt much lighter seeing her photo again. "Selena, in the next life, don't be so greedy.